So hello and welcome to the Two Medics podcast. My name is Sushant Wardner. I'm a cardiology registrar with a special interest in intervention.
With a special interest in hearts, innit?
Yeah, who are you?
I couldn't say. This is Beth and John, and I forgot who I am now. Oh, I'm a GP trainee. Yeah, I'm a GP trainee, not specialising in intervention, but yeah, ex-neurosurgery trainee, which is still basically my personality.
Oh, no, you're so much more than that. So much more than that.
I'm a GP, yeah. I'm a GP trainee.
Yeah, fair enough. This is it's a bit weird for me to be introducing the podcast, and we were expecting to have Imran and Nina here, but they've mysteriously both disappeared at the same time, so I don't know, gonna have to guess what they're up to.
They've bombed us off, man.
They bombed us off. Exactly. Got better things to do. How about that? Better. So today's episode is supposed to be like a year's wrap up, right? Where we go over the topics from the year, or at least what we can remember, because we were both saying we're just existing from 1 week to a time.
The concept of time is just, I don't get it anymore.
I know, there's some of that stuff in there, like bean bags, that was this year, oh my god, but it's just, when I was like, yeah, so that was this year though, isn't it so much, I've aged, man, this is the longest year.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like the medical side of Twitter has changed a lot this year as well. I feel like I interacted in a very different way maybe earlier in the year that I do now, and there's lots of like inflammatory accounts and stuff around of late, isn't there? Which has changed things. But yeah, I couldn't tell you what happened last week, so God forbid how we're going to wrap the year up.
Yeah. Because it doesn't. The thing is, though, I'm conscious of the fact that everyone goes, everything is worse now. Although it does feel worse, doesn't it, sadly?
Yeah.
Do you think it's because of Elon Musk, or is it because of...
No, I don't know. I don't think I noticed things different in that way. I had a lot of people saying, oh, since he took over, I'm not seeing any of the accounts I follow. I'm seeing all like right-wing stuff. And I thought, but I always saw that that's not a new thing, and I think you just whatever gets amplified ends up however the algorithm works, isn't it? But yeah. I don't know, I just think there are more knobheads around. I don't know what it is. I just think people, I don't know, I think the pathway's been cleared by someone to, you can say all this stuff, you can be anonymous and it's okay because no one knows who you are. I've just noticed that like loads of those, and I'm just talking about my very small like med Twitter kind of bubble, I guess. But I just feel like there's a lot more of these kind of anonymous type accounts. It's just a bit, I don't know, it's a bit strange. I don't know, what do you think?
Guess, yeah, doesn't that speak to how safe we thought med Twitter was, and now it perhaps feels a bit less safe now? It feels like there's more sharks in the water. But then I feel like if that's the case, like, will it get better? I just wonder, does it reflect current times where everything's a bit kind of bit rubbish? And so I guess during COVID, people banded together more because there was a feeling of being in it together. Whereas now, there just seems people seem to be a lot more angry about.
Yeah, I think it's generally a reflection of what's going on in real life. Of course, life is real. And I'm just thinking, was deepfake the oil financier? Was that this year or was that last year?
No, that was definitely the year before. The oil financier. No, that's definitely because I remember that because that was around the time that Erin was born. That's 2 years ago.
Of course.
So he's long gone. I wonder how he is now.
I wonder what
new identity.
Yeah, I wonder what profession that he's pretending to be.
He's pretending to be now. It was rheumatology before. What specialty do you think he'd be now?
I don't know. Something. I reckon he'd be like an anti-vaxxer type lifestyle functional
fair enough.
Thing now.
Yeah.
Like he's just going to embrace the villainhood and just go for it.
I wish him well in his fantasy career.
Whatever oil he's selling these days, man. All the best.
Exactly. All the best, mate. All the best.
That was so funny.
But you know what? Going through the kind of tweets of the last year, there are some fallen accounts. There's somewhere I click on it and they're gone for one reason or the other.
Yeah.
Some obviously have gone across to Mastodon. Did you create a Mastodon account?
No, I'm quite thick when it comes to life in general, but especially technology and things. And it took me, even though I started Twitter over 10 years ago, I think it took me about 8 years to figure out what I was doing there, and finally got used to that. So I just couldn't bear the thought of, I thought, I'm just going to stick with this. And
packing.
Did you go? Yeah, you went.
I did. I tried it. The thing is that I don't know. I didn't get quite the same reception. So what I did for a while was I thought, okay, so I don't want to cross pollinate. So like
Yeah.
I thought I'd do different like memes on each one and see what happened. And simply put, I just didn't get the level of validation that I get on Twitter. So I was a bit like, oh
No good then,
god,
man.
this.
Suck it off.
Yeah, I only want
Yeah.
people to be like liking my stuff, and I was a bit like, this is terrible. I'm not getting
I
the
feel like it's a spin-off. Like obviously, Friends is very problematic now. The TV show Friends. I
like
feel like that's
Joey.
Twitter. And then yeah, Mastodon's like Joey, where you just try and
Oh
break out,
yeah.
doesn't quite work, and
Yeah,
then
and the
yeah,
promise was there. Like Mastodon's quite a
it
cool name
was.
for a
Yeah,
thing, and I still got my account.
yeah.
Occasionally, I open it up, but it's not really, it's not taken off. Not
I
yet.
think on paper it did sound it sounded so much better, but yeah, who knows why it didn't take off.
Oh well, so for now anyway, we'll still be talking about Twitter, and so what we decided
Yeah.
to do was work through the year starting from January, which, as I say, seems like a really long time ago. And it starts with we start with a kind of a question that I'm always asking myself. So even though it's January, this could literally have been posted yesterday, and it's from
Yeah.
Xander. He goes, "How does one get good at being a trainee?" And I think we're probably from the conversations we have with one another, I think we probably both got kind of feelings on this one. But he goes,
Yeah.
I feel, yeah, I feel so overwhelmed by trying to keep all the plates spinning. And I would definitely use that term before, plate spinning. Logbooks, portfolios, teaching, operating, service provision, in inverted commas and little stars, because God, isn't that a topic? And then many have suggested going less than full time, but the thought of extending further is daunting. I have been busy before. I worked full time through all three of my full time degrees, but this just feels different. I can't be the only one that's experienced this. I feel as though if I can't push past this, I just can't see a career for me in medicine, and I guess that just makes me feel really sad. So this was in January. Earlier, so January 2022. So Alexander's still around and tweeting away, and I'm glad, that he's still. I always feel a bit funny about this when people do tweet that, because you're a bit like, you stick at it and whatever, and then at the same time I'm a bit like, but if it's really toxic, then should we be doing that? Should we be the voice that's, oh, have you considered, what do you think about on this kind of topic?
It's really hard, isn't it? And I have this perpetual like argument with myself because I think whenever I clicked on this and I was scrolling down and the first reply I saw was my own from January the 6th. And if I always, whenever there's a question or a tweet like this, I always end up thinking the same sentiment that I feel like I'm a good doctor. And when I was in neurosurgery, I felt like I was good at what I did then. Of course, obviously not amazing, but I felt like I was safe and competent. And I feel like I'm safe and competent now. But I think it's different being a good doctor to being a good like trainee, if that makes sense. And I feel like I can be a good doctor, but I'm definitely not a good trainee. It just
So,
feels like such a big disconnect. Sorry.
yeah, why do you think that is? What is it? Okay, what do you think makes a good trainee? Because I don't feel like the answer to that is someone I necessarily like that much. But
No, same. Yeah, same. I don't equate being a good trainee necessarily with being a good doctor or good at whatever you do. I don't think those are like mutually exclusive. But I don't know, being a trainee is very much about, in my kind of, if I break it down in my mind, it's all about that executive functioning type stuff of portfolio and reflecting. And it feels very forced. And I think like we're constantly reflecting and we're constantly thinking about stuff that's happened to us, but I'm not being forced to write it down in a boxes with very regimented descriptions and what to write. And it's when I with my GP portfolio, it was all about, oh, you should write your reflection like this and not like this. And I'm like, well, all I'm doing is just writing crap
reflection.
just to satisfy an ARCP at the end of the year, and
Yeah.
it doesn't actually mean anything. And things like your multi-source feedbacks and stuff, like yeah, of course we're going to ask people who actually like us, and it's just I don't know. There's a disconnect with that as well. I feel like we always get maybe good reports and stuff from our colleagues in whatever field, but it doesn't quite match up with the effort that I put into the portfolio. And I don't know, I've got such a grudge against it now.
No, fair enough. But if you had all like unlimited resources and unlimited time, and you could redesign the ARCP process, dun, 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 like with all that power, and you didn't let that power just suddenly take on the world, like world domination and stuff. But say if you just focused on the ARCP process, how would you redesign it? Or how would you? Do
I
you have
don't
an
think I'd
idea?
have like, yeah, I don't think I'd have form. You'd have to have something formal. You need to progress, don't you? And I feel like we're straying into Johnny Gookian territory now. I love
Oh yeah,
when
true.
this stuff comes up. I love reading Johnny's kind of thoughts on these things. Like I think there was a bit of a push in, or there was a talk in surgery a while back about doing a lot more practical things. Instead of maybe doing 40 reflections, a large part of the kind of appraisal process might have been observed procedures. So not just like DOPS, but very real time when you're operating and things like that. And I think that can extend to anything really. I just don't like these forced assessments. And we're doing ward rounds and stuff with consultants and registrars, and that I feel like that should be your assessment rather than just what, because you can write any old crap down as well, essentially, can't you? It's kind of try to sometimes simplify cases just to make it sound like more concise and making sense in a
Yeah.
case-based discussion and stuff. And it's yeah, I don't know. What do you have any thoughts about that? Or
I think if I imagine, say, in like a world where this sounds really lame, but if Apple designed like the hospital, right, from scratch, and whereby when you did the clerking, for example, and you like write stuff down, and all of the data was instantly just collated into different
yeah,
things, and so therefore, like you saw this person and you picked up these signs, those would all be populating some kind of weird logbook, so that if someone asked the question like, how many people have you seen with this, or how many times have you heard this, or whatever, they could find it. And so that kind of takes the onus off you to like basically wade through this information and try and find like meaning in it, which I think is just really like weird and post hoc. And as you say, I'm not sure that we're really getting much from it other than just being like, look, here
yeah,
it is. Oh, like
yeah. Because
making
day to
stuff.
day, I don't think it has a reflection on how I am day to day. Whereas in your idea, which sounds really good, for example, like if you went onto the electronic patient record in the hospital that I work at now, and if I could pull every record that I had written or every patient I'd seen and showed, oh, this is how I managed this, and then people would be like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, that's safe, that's a good plan, or maybe that could be improved on or not.
exactly.
So is that very much like real time rather than
Yeah,
this force? What did you learn? What could you do better?
exactly.
It's so hard.
And I think also then it takes some of the, because I think so much of our kind of, so many of our assessments are dependent on a consultant kind of being like, oh, okay, let's do this, or responding to their email in a timely
Yeah,
way or
it's
whatever.
constant
And
chasing. Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
And that in itself, I just don't have the, I often ask once, but I generally don't. I hate chasing it.
Yeah.
I hate
It's
chasing
actually,
that
it
stuff.
feels awkward, doesn't it? It
So
feels really
awkward.
awkward. Was
And
one thing I was surprised about in GP was that even our reflections had to get signed off by a supervisor, which
all
I'd
right,
never done previously. So I don't know why we just couldn't input things into your portfolio and then you get to ARCP and it's reviewed. But each reflection had to be signed off by a supervisor before it would even appear in your portfolio. And
that's so
yeah.
arbitrarily just it just adds another like a checkpoint that's not really on a process that's already quite laborious and long.
Too
I saw
right.
like a reply from Joshua Wilcox that said, it feels like good portfolios often accompany clinically absent junior doctors. I did sometimes find that the people who are just so hot on that stuff, they obviously, yeah, the way I explained in my head, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe they're just super sorted people, but often, like, and I'm just not that
They
person.
don't
But
exist. They don't exist.
but I'm like, how have you got your life together? Like, how have you got all
I
these things?
know, man.
And
Yeah.
then you realize that they're just like they're chilling. The times you're like dicking around with that sick patient, they're chilling, and that's why they've got that
Yeah.
energy to go and get these
Yeah. To
assessments and
actually,
stuff.
yeah, involve themselves with the portfolio.
Yeah, but like
Yeah.
the other side of it though is when you see people struggling, when do you? At what point, are you, as a friend or as a bystander or how like whatever position you're in, like when do you stop to say? Because there's encouragement and then there's kind of people who are within a kind of toxic pathological situation and need to get out. How do you, I sometimes kind of wonder though when you're pepping someone along, like whether that's what they need to be hearing or whether they need to be hearing like actually that's like we're saying, like it's really relatable, that feeling they're having. Like
Yeah.
I find that kind of difficult.
Yeah, I think you guys, and we've spoken about it a couple of times over the past year, but there's that notion, isn't it, of toxic positivity, and it's
Yeah.
sometimes it's the last thing that you want to hear. And I'm just looking through the replies on this now, and there's just so many people who
Yeah.
I'd totally forgotten about this. And lots of people saying, yeah, I was a trainee in trouble. You're not alone. My TPD hated me as a trainee, and it's all these things, and that's the raw stuff that you want to hear, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
I had some not huge issues, but I had some issues with the portfolio when the GP school kind of recently leading up to my January ARCP, and I was getting really frustrated because it was just being treated not very well, and it was very much met with, this is just how it is, they're always like
Yeah.
this, you just don't worry, you'll be fine, you just need to sort it out. And it's, no, that's not the point, this is a really shitty situation. So yeah, I agree with you, I don't think that's not always what people want to hear. And it's quite nice when you see threads like this. Nice seems a weird way to describe it, but do you know what I mean, in the way that
Yeah.
you just know that there's other people who are definitely in the same position as you and who are also
Yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
finding it difficult.
It's that kind of collective like leveling with each other and being like, yeah, this is
And I
fair
think that
enough.
can be quite unusual in medicine sometimes, because it always feels very dog eat dog, doesn't it? And very
Yeah.
competitive. And
Oh, like
if
if you're
I,
struggling.
yeah, yeah, oh well,
Yeah,
better to be
exactly.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So,
of course it's good to see the vulnerability, I think.
absolutely. What did you think about this next one? The verbally offered. So, locum rates is something that kind of comes up, or at least you pay is obviously a regular topic. And do you remember this one? So, verbally offered an enhanced. So, this was from Clara E. Munro. Verbally offered an enhanced locum rate, wild extra £5 an hour to cover a rota cap that had been known about for 5 months on the day. So, 3 months after submitting the form, finally emailed and told, rate is honoured only if this offer had been made in writing before the shift started. Hashtag flourishing. I enjoy that.
That's bull, isn't
In
it? That
writing.
is bull.
Yeah.
That I don't remember that from the time, but you're right. Like a lot of things come around about like locums and locum rates and stuff, don't they? And I recall, I don't know when it was from this year, but I recall a tweet from someone who said that they tried to negotiate their locum rate and they were getting threatened
I
to
saw
be
that.
reported by the to the GMC because they felt that it was like, I can't remember what the excuse they
Unprofessional.
used, but yeah, that's it, unprofessional. But this is a business and they're
Yeah.
acting very unbusinesslike or whatever to us. And it felt very strange that to try and negotiate rates, we were threatened with being unprofessional.
Yeah. I think, didn't they mention like telling their TPD and stuff?
Yeah, it was quite a, not even, I was gonna say a thinly veiled threat. It wasn't even a thinly
It was a
veiled
threat,
threat.
wasn't
It
it?
was very like, the screenshot was very blatant, like,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
are
yeah.
reporting you. But
Yeah. Have you ever had that happen to you where like you've been into taking locums? Because that's definitely something that's
I don't know. I don't know. I've definitely changed over the last few years, and I have not taken a locum shift since I've started GP training, and I've gone less than full time, and I'm doing kind of reduced hours and stuff. And whereas previously in neurosurgery, I don't know, things were different then. I think we were always looking for locum shifts to top up our wages and things. And God, we were suckers. Like we were getting paid no more than 50 quid an hour as like a
oh really?
neurosurgery reg for the region, like
Oh
on
wow.
site, and sometimes £40 an hour, and we all did it for that, which was just,
Oh
this was like
wow.
even 3 years ago, which was crazy. And I thought, oh
Yeah.
God, now I wish I had what I knew now and what other people are getting paid and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're on a WhatsApp group in my current hospital, and every day there is constant messages about kind of short notice locums. But
Yeah.
I don't know, at the moment, I just feel like I've managed to set some good boundaries and I don't feel like
Pressure.
obliged to do those. I think, yeah, it's reason is multifold or whatever, but I don't feel guilted into them at the moment. And I think the reimbursement is so poor anyway as well, that it makes it easier to make that decision, I
To
think,
say
as
no.
well.
That's the key, isn't it? Because when people are like, well, I think when they offer you a paltry rate and you're negotiating it, you're making a decision about your time, which you could otherwise spend
Of
doing things that you
course.
want to be doing. So I don't see how is that like unprofessional. Like, I just like wonder. I have had the experience, shall we say, of getting an email which is along the lines of, you may well be interested in getting a consultant job in this, and therefore,
Now that's a
you,
thinly veiled threat.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So
Yeah.
it'd be important that it'd be looked upon favourably. And I'm like, mate, you're not going to remember like when any of us are going to apply for a
No,
consultant job if we
you
picked
are
up that
not.
cheeky
No,
local weekend ship. No, that's rubbish.
no.
And
That's such a sneaky line, isn't it?
exactly right. And I just think just pay us more. But I had an issue where there was a like that person, there was a kind of rota gap and they wanted me to cover like a large block of on calls, and I didn't want to do it, certainly for the amount they were paying. And I was like, look at how much I said, "No, but I could get paid more for this stuff elsewhere." And they're like, "Oh, show us." And I literally forwarded them emails being like, "This is what they
Yeah.
said," and they were like, "Okay." And then I went to some managers and they came back and they negotiated, and I think that's like reasonable because I'm like, mate,
That's
literally.
professional. Yeah.
Yeah,
That,
yeah, absolutely. And I think I saw a response to that tweet that you mentioned where someone was saying that the BMA are going to release like a kind of recommended like hourly rate thing or
Oh, like a
whatever.
rate, yeah, because they've done it for consultants and SAS, haven't they? Like a rate
Have
card, but
they?
it doesn't exist for other grades at the moment. And I think,
Right.
is it Mike Henley who's quite vocal in that respect? And I see him posting the rate card a lot. And I think it's such good work because you're saying, like, this is what our union recommends, this
It's
is what my
true.
colleagues are getting paid, and you can use it to negotiate. But I think anyone who's not at that level, we still struggle, and it's hugely variable, isn't it, between like regions and stuff.
True. Mike Henley, yes, he's very vocal when it comes to the consultant situation, isn't he?
Yeah, should we move on?
Yeah. I just,
No, but it's I think something like that is much needed because this is all, I don't know, I think yeah, we're not getting paid our worth at all. And it's, you hear lots of these stories about last minute locums, you try and negotiate, they say absolutely not, and then the shift goes empty and they've just,
yeah,
it's like cutting off your nose to spite your face. It really, yeah, I don't understand how any of it
yeah,
works.
totally, totally. Yeah, I'm moving. We've just done January, so like February now.
It's all very
Uh,
kind of very fitting for now as well, like you say, isn't it? These are timeless tweets.
yeah, exactly. There's a tweet from Wingsome Lau. Do you want to read this one?
Yeah, so hashtag unconscious bias episode 502. This morning, an anaesthetist walks into the neurosurgery handover meeting and addresses
Oh my
the
god,
room with,
it wasn't because it was
"Hello,
neurosurgery
gents."
though.
No, but this, I feel like I could be writing this tweet myself. Yeah, hello, gents. I'm sure it wasn't intentional, but as the only female neurosurgery reg present, I can't help but feel a little excluded. I don't know, that's just everyday occurrence in neurosurgery, I feel. And
Yeah,
gents, I hate that word. Hello, gents. It's very upper middle, no, upper middle, upper
Gents.
class white wan
Yeah,
kind of speak, isn't it? It's,
yeah. You can
yeah,
almost
it's
hear
really,
the kind of voice, can't you? Right,
oh,
gents, lads, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, totally. Have you seen that show Getting On with Joe Brand and Vicky Pepperdine? It's a sitcom comedy about a ward, and
Right.
it's very true to life. I know there's a lot of people on Med Twitter who love it, but there's a female consultant in there, and she has a group of either junior doctors or medical students following her around who are both male and female, and even she's addresses them as, "Oh, come on, gents," and it's just that every time I see it, I'm like, this is why it's so realistic because this is the stuff that happens. It's
Yeah,
only words, isn't it? But I don't know. It's
yeah.
just, oh, it's a bit icky.
It isn't it. It did make me think because sometimes I have been known to call pretty much everyone mate, and I have called people bro a lot, which is weird because that doesn't make any sense. But like, I think there were a lot of responses to that, which were basically going along those lines, but were from the perspective of not really seeing how, in that scenario, how othering that what we think is just like a
Yeah,
throwaway thing is actually because it's like one of many things, isn't it, that just makes
of
people feel
course.
like an outsider.
I'm just looking through some of the replies now, and there's a few about saying, "Oh, I would say, all right, lads," or "all right, guys," and I'm just like, that feels a bit different. Yeah, we can still talk about that, but I don't know. Gents is just, it's just a weird one, and there's lots of talks about whether you say, "Oh, hi everyone," or "Hi all," or "Hi
Yeah,
guys and gals." It could be anything, but
yeah,
it's just, I think when you're in like an old boys club like neurosurgery anyway, and I don't know, stuff like that just all fits with that stereotype, doesn't it?
yeah. There is. Have you? You must have had that kind of scenario, so whereby you're walking into somewhere slightly like threatening or like outside of your. I definitely had that kind of sensation as a med reg or even as a cardiology reg, and you walk into an area where you've been, I don't know, you've been fast bleeped, and there's like a bunch of people who are just like, I don't know,
Yeah.
like watching you as you enter, and
Yeah, like,
I always
you're not local. We
yeah,
don't know who
exactly.
you
Like
are.
A&E recess, oh gosh, like a bunch of seagulls and you're like this small.
Yeah.
But and so sometimes like that, I've wondered about something to say to break the ice better. Because it's just the reason why I said that is because Shana was like, oh, when she like walks in, she's hiya, and I'm but like sometimes I'm tempted to say something slightly inappropriate. I don't know, like cool
Yeah.
or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah, I think, sometimes I don't have a filter, and sometimes I would address a room like that, not meaning to, but that's how it would come out and make an absolute tit out of myself. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, those kind of icebreakers, they can be a bit awkward, can't they?
yeah, totally. That's like my default setting. So like the next one in February was one where I thought so this was from Spooky Medic at AGEM Journey. And I said, okay, Med Twitter, today I wore clean Converse to placement. She
Oh, I
mentioned
forgot
clean
about
as mine on
this.
clean.
Yeah, I
And
forgot about
was
this one.
told Yeah, it's extremely unprofessional. I look smart otherwise, and I don't really see how my choice of footwear makes me unprofessional. I wouldn't mind if my doctor wore trainers as long as they were kind. And then one of the replies was, "Patients will judge you on what you wear. I'm not saying it's right, but it will happen!" Exclamation mark. Ultimately, you're there for their care, and so pushing the dress boundaries may cause avoidable friction. How often do you? I love Converses. I
Yeah,
never
me
really
too,
thought
man.
of them
They're
as.
timeless.
I know.
And
They're
also,
pushing the dress boundaries, man.
this is such a weird reply as well. Like,
Yeah.
pushing the dress boundaries as if
Boundaries.
Converse is some like crazy, wacky, out there type of what?
I know.
Yeah, I think what's more unprofessional is and oh, I'm so sorry if you do this, Therusha, please forgive me. But you
Uh,
know those people who wear scrubs and then will wear like a brown pointy toe smart shoe with like
oh,
green
gross.
scrubs? You don't do
That's
that, do you?
weird. That is so
Oh, thank
weird. Why would
goodness.
you do
I
that?
think that's unprofessional. It just looks
Yeah,
strange. Like
yeah it's
I
really
don't
odd.
know. Yeah, trainers all the way with scrubs, man.
Yeah. I
Don't wear your
don't.
dress shoes with scrubs.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I wear my theatre shoes mainly
Yeah,
because
your clogs. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
because
I think that's normal.
yeah. Whereas although my theatre shoes were white, and then I got Lily to like color them in pink because people
That's
kept
such a good
nicking
idea.
them. People kept nicking
Yeah,
them,
yeah,
and I saw one guy like wearing
yeah,
them out like barefoot, and so I was like, no. So people may have something to say about that,
yeah,
but then I'd be like, oh, my daughter like drew on them, and they'd be like, all right, whatever.
yeah.
But
I bought a pair of acid green pair for the exact same reason because they were
oh,
vile
nice,
colour, and if somebody else
interesting.
was wearing them, it was
Like
because they
yes,
were
they're
vile.
mine. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
those are
Fair.
mine.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
the shoes.
That's how you have to survive, isn't it? Because people will nick them. Anything nice in the hospital, and like someone will teeth them.
Yeah.
But like,
Sometimes
what
even
is?
like padlocking them together was another option as well that only
Oh
you know the
God.
code for. So
Yeah,
you'd have to like, yeah, both clogs were together.
yeah. But do you think
Sorry,
it's
go.
so easy for like people to be like, that's unprofessional. This is different. This is unprofessional. That's unprofessional. And do you feel like we're already discussing that again, like this idea of what's professional? And I feel like that's something we talk about so much. But like, why is that just so ubiquitous? It's such an easy thing to
Yeah.
like, an easy criticism that seems to be leveled at absolutely everything.
Yeah,
Um,
it's definitely like the flavor of the month or the flavor of the year, I think, at the moment.
yeah,
It's, yeah, every person who wants to be inflammatory or reactionary, like, that's
that's
their
the
kind
key
of
buzzword.
weapon, is that word, unprofessionalism.
Yeah. I find it really does get my kind of, it does raise my hackles, and it does make me think because it's such a kind of weirdly veiled threat, isn't it? It makes you, because I feel like it cuts quite close to like our identity because so much of we want to be seen as like appearing as unprofessional kind of makes us or makes me feel like someone saying that I'm acting in a way that's not befitting a doctor and stuff, and
Exactly. Yeah,
it's kind of
yeah. I
hurtful,
think
isn't
it's a word that cuts really deeply. And I think I've had it used against me in a work setting with supervisors and stuff previously. And that stings even more, I think, because sometimes it's over like really innocuous things. And as soon as that word or that notion is cast around,
it? Yeah.
it hurts because you know that you're not. But if that's the
What
thing
the
that people see about you, you're just like, God, like you say, it's tied
hurtful.
up in your identity. It's, oh my God, what have I done? And
Yeah.
I think people know that, and that's why they weaponize it as well, because it's such an easy thing to say. Because I think that was this year, wasn't it? That is it, Dr. Aurora with the laptop getting reported to the GMC, and that was all tied up in being unprofessional and stuff. Whereas really, that there's nothing unprofessional about that kind of interaction
Yeah.
about being promised laptops and stuff. But that's the threat that was used, and look how far that went.
Yeah, totally. How stressful, right? And I don't know. I think we need. I don't know how we can like decouple it because it's just used so readily and so brazenly by
Yeah.
people, and I feel like yeah,
And like, how is there, like, how can there be some absolute shitbags around in our profession,
yeah,
which we all know there are, and then they just coast through, and
yeah,
we know that there's serious issues about their professionalism, but no
yeah,
one kind of in the regulatory body gives a shit.
yeah. Is that what I mean? Or
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, that's prime candidate number one, and there's
yeah,
loads of them around on social media, and very vocal, but it's just like that gets swept away. It's so bizarre.
yeah. Yeah, I despair. Anyway, on to a
Yeah.
topic that I feel like we're both way more equipped to talk about. So April this year, in a new special on how to raise testosterone levels in men, Tucker Carlson's guest suggests testicle tanning using infrared light as bromeopathic therapy. Thanks for linking this one because I missed this the first time round. I'm gutted. So I've missed a whole, so it's April. So I've missed about 8 months of this therapy.
Man,
And
you know what? You can catch up. It's done
can
me the
I?
world of good. Like,
Can
I'm
you
always
just
getting my perineum out to sun it. This
to
is,
send it?
yeah.
Can you double dose then? It's not going to cause a
Yeah,
problem.
like I think you can essentially double dose, just get like everywhere exposed essentially. Make sure that's the main thing.
So
You
like,
just
I
stay up
mean,
until sunrise to sunset. That's all you need to do.
yeah, fair enough. So I just don't know with stuff like this. I kind of wonder like this guy is obviously he's on. So Tucker Carlson, for people who don't know, is like a host of Fox News, I think, in the States.
Yeah.
So is he like the US version of, I don't know, Piers Morgan or something? I feel like he's
Yeah,
from
someone who's
America.
very right wing, someone who's a bit of a dick,
Okay.
and yeah, I think that's probably a good comparison, I think.
Like maybe Piers Morgan with Nigel Farage or something, and just
Oh,
so. And they're talking about. I think what is the obsession with testosterone? There's obviously also at the moment there's stuff with Andrew Tate, right? And there's that other guy that I haven't actually got a tweet from, but the guy who was talking about how like men are like always alone and whatever. And do you remember there's that guy who's like,
yeah.
you're born alone, nobody will care for you, and what you need to focus on is raising strong sons or something. And I was like, whoa, dude, way to tell
Yeah.
yourself. But there is like this thing that seems to be that they seem to be these people, these kind of influencers seem to be tapping into a kind of group of men who obviously feel like they need to raise their testosterone levels, and there are obviously other issues going on and stuff. And
You need to be a
have
more
they?
manly man. Like it's
Yeah.
weird.
I kind of wonder because I feel like that kind of subgroup of people has always been there, but now that energy is being tapped into in a really big way, and that energy that's going into that is scary and odd. And I always felt, like I felt like there was that kind of energy, but I thought most guys gravitated towards that growing up anyway. And then I remember watching like a comedy. Russell Brand is obviously he's gone off piste and is, I don't know, a bit weird now. But I remember seeing a skit by him where he was talking about being a beta male and listening to it and being like, oh my god, that's me. Like, I like Girls Aloud. I like girly stuff.
Yeah.
And this is cool. This guy's obviously, because I remember thinking he's really cool. He's really funny, and like people like him. And I'm like, oh my god, this is my niche. Whatever. And I thought, oh, this is like gonna herald like this new like awakening, like Noel Fielding, like basically guys who had long hair, like to wear skinny jeans and a bit of makeup, whatever. But but I kind of feel like maybe this is like a backlash to that or something.
Yeah,
Like,
it's retaliation, isn't it? More testosterone. Yeah.
Shine infrared light on your balls. Like, why do you need that? Just be cool, man.
I just think how are people like not obviously we are not lapping it up, but there are people out there who are just like, yeah, I need to do this. It's quite incel-y as well. Do you not think?
Yeah. I mean, I think that.
Oh yeah, and it's this alpha stuff is just
alpha stuff. Oh yeah, alpha dogs. Yeah, I remember all that
yeah.
chat. Like,
Go on and feel free to crack on with your burnt balls. No skin off my nose, but don't. I was gonna say don't ram it down my throat, but that's
that could be another way to sell it. But I think if the answer to your question is shine infrared light on your testicles, then I think you're asking the wrong questions. I think that's it. If you're ever getting into that point where seems to be an answer, that's something you're researching. You've taken a few wrong turns. You need to retrace your steps.
Life needs to be reassessed. And do you remember all that stuff that was out there about as a man you should never have a laptop on your lap because it'll fry your balls all this kind of stuff? And now we're getting actively encouraged to sun them. Do you know what, man? Medical misinformation.
Mixed messages.
So much going on, yeah.
I remember once I was on the phone to someone and then I answered my mobile phone on the other ear and my friend was like, oh no, if you do that, if you have two phones, you'll fry what's in between. And I was like, but the obvious question is why
Excuse me.
two phones at the same time, I don't know. Anyway, so we're on May now, May 2022. And I know why I keep saying the year, that's important.
It's good to be reminded. It's good to be reminded.
Thanks. So, you know what? So this is a tweet from Jenny Pusey. Thank you so much, Jenny, for your kind of tweets throughout the year. You have been a real fountain of...
Thoroughly enjoyed them, yeah.
So you know what really improves staff well-being? NHS managers who storm into the middle of your afternoon handover to ask why you're not recording breaks on our monitoring forms.
Class. Classic.
I like it because it has three different
Yeah.
themes. One is about NHS managers storming in. Two is about
Mm.
having a handover interrupted, and three, it's about monitoring.
Yeah, yeah.
So I feel like
The old monitoring.
because I feel isn't that for your kind of welfare that they're doing that?
He's very multifaceted and he's a
Yeah,
very good focus of discussion.
yeah,
Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm just like it's one of those things where you're like, yeah, man. Of course, you
yeah,
don't get surprised by this stuff, do you? Oh
yeah.
yeah, of course.
It's normal.
I remember back when the pandemic was like in the early days, and face masks and stuff weren't quite as mainstream as they were going to end up being, and being on a ward. And NHS manager coming down and saying, "Why are you wearing that mask? This is not for you." And
Oh,
all this kind of stuff. And it was on a, I can't remember what I won't say where I was and what ward I was on, but it was very much go, you're going to be scaring the patients, you need to take that off. And it was all just, sorry, who do you
I
think
think you
you
are.
are? Like, and
Yeah,
this is not like an NHS manager versus doctor thing, but again, it's that kind of, yeah, in the middle of the ward round, feeling absolutely free to just storm in and interrupt things. Well, they're very much non-clinical. They shouldn't be in a kind of a middle of a ward round in the middle of a bay anyway. What are you
yeah,
contributing there? And
mm,
just that kind of audacity to think you need to stop what you're doing because I need to tell you off about something.
yeah. Amazing.
And it's yeah, and I really don't want to get into that like NHS manager discourse because we know got we couldn't run without them, and we know the vast majority, just like any other profession, of course they're amazing, and this is not about that per se, but it's about this small kind of collective or small few who do feel the ability to do these things. It's just I don't know. It's very unprofessional. I'm
Oh my
gonna
God, Bethan.
use that again. It's
Oh,
very
hold your tongue.
unprofessional.
Yeah.
I
No,
know.
I know what you
No,
mean though. But okay, so we're not obviously we're not bashing all like NHS managers because
no, no.
they're dickheads in every realm,
Oh,
right?
in every walk of life, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And certainly you get that amongst doctors, don't we know it? But it's interesting like that. So what did you do? Did you take your mask off? Did you take it
Oh
off?
God, no. I don't know. I think but the past 5 years of my life, I've become very arsey, and I don't know what's changed. But
Good on
I'm
you.
just like, it's a bit of a tit now, to be honest. I always have been, but I don't know. It's just like one of those things where I think you get enough of being infantilized, and I
Yeah.
think you reach a certain age. I don't know why that matters, but for some reason
Fair
does,
enough.
and you just suddenly feel like, no, I'm too old for this shit. I know
Yeah.
I didn't in that situation. I had no intention of taking it off, and I wasn't even aware at that time, of course, of how things were. We knew were
Okay.
airborne and things, but I think I kept it on just out of principle and to piss other people off.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough.
But
Good
I
on
had,
you.
yeah, no intention. And I think, like, in this type of situation that Jenny has tweeted about here, it's that audacity, and it makes you,
Mm.
I don't know, it triggers something in me to just be like, I'm not doing that now then. I know that's very childish, but
No, fair enough.
that's who
Because
I
you said
am
it
now.
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I
fair enough.
ain't doing it. Yeah.
Have you ever had anyone say stuff about your hair? Like, I don't know. Because that seems to be something
Um,
that if they decided to
Oh
pick an
God,
issue with.
yeah, yeah. I've had comments about kind of hair and stuff, and I tweeted about something recently in response to I think it was in response to something Roshana said about nail varnish because I feel like that's come up quite a lot as well, and
Right.
infection control policies and stuff. And I remember having like shellac nail polish on before I was going on annual leave and being in like a theatre setting, and the consultant I was with at the time had normal kind of chip nail varnish on, and
Right.
I got absolutely rinsed in front of the entire theatre team before
Oh
I'd
my
even
God.
scrubbed in for daring to walk in with this nail varnish. And then when I said to the theatre team, I didn't mean it to sound like this, but I was like, oh, but this person has nail varnish on and they're scrubbed in and operating. Like, how is that different? And the exact words to me were, she's the consultant and
Fuck off.
you're the registrar. So that's just how it
So,
is. And I was like,
yeah.
oh, I forgot
Oh,
that
that.
microbes are respected this
Yeah.
hierarchy have, and
Yeah.
oh, of course. But yeah, those comments about hair, nails, watches, rings, it's
Yeah.
all, I don't buy it. It's just a power play, I think, a lot of it, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly that. I feel like people do it to bring you down a peg, isn't it? And when they say, oh, that she's a consultant, that's just telling on themselves. They're saying
Yeah,
exactly what that
of
is.
course, yeah. They are telling on themselves. But yeah, I think you can, like these kind of things, it's all, again, it tells on themselves in the way that they know that the system and the situation is completely screwed up. So the fact that they're demanding to know why they're not recording breaks on their monitoring forms shows that the monitoring is showing bad stuff in terms of
Yeah.
the hours and stuff they're working, and they're obviously panicking over that. But it's trying to pull the wool over people's eyes, isn't it? It's that kind of vibe.
Oh, I thought the NHS manager was storming into the meeting to say, "Why aren't you guys taking breaks? You need to stop now and take your
Oh,
breaks."
I've interpreted that completely differently then.
No, you're right. I think
Completely
sarcastic.
differently.
I think
Yeah.
sarcastic.
Oh,
Who
you
knows?
got me.
Yeah, I know. I'm such a rogue
Oh, yeah.
rascal. But yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I think unfortunately with these things, it usually is the cynical take that's the right one. You can't forget what it's the NHS we're talking about. Sure. There was like something I thought we'd discuss, even though it's since been deleted, and so I figured that we shouldn't. And also the tweet that I've copied in. Sorry, it copies in an account that I'm not a big fan of, but it was in reference to a TikTok that was by a consultant, right? Do you remember this? Who's in a car and she was kind of
Oh,
she played like
yeah.
mournful music in the background and was like, I
That's
don't
it.
and it
The
was
talky music.
yes, and we're talking about I think the conversation was about voting to strike at that point, and she was
Yes,
like, I believe we're paid enough, and I don't think it's right for patients. I think it's unsafe for patients. And she did this kind of music in the background, talking in the car thing, whatever. And
that's
then
it. Yes,
she got absolutely rinsed so
she
hard. Oh my
totally
god!
did.
Came to Twitter
Rightly
and
so.
amazing.
Yeah.
I think fairly. And then she came back with, oh, I'm really sorry. Like I do support junior doctors and stuff. And then there've been a few other things where I've seen where I'm like, oh, I'm not so sure she is the best person to be working for as a junior doctor. I saw this kind of TikTok video where she was talking about hiding when during junior doctor changeover day and stuff.
Really
You know,
bad vibes.
they're definite bad
Yeah.
vibes.
Yeah, I was just chuckling to myself because I remember thinking at the time when she posted the video and then came back with this rebuttal, like apology kind of thing. It
Right.
felt like, remember, was it Eamon back in the day who did a video, and there was it Frankie that did a song, F You Right Back, and it was like this do you remember that? A to and fro between, I'm sure it was Eamon and Frankie. This must have been like 15, 20 years ago. And it just felt like she was, I don't know, it felt like she was just arguing with herself, just very strange behaviour.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just, yeah, I forgot she must have juniors and stuff. Oh
Yeah,
God bless
like
them.
exhausting.
No.
So I can imagine as well, because people put their kind of best social media selves out there, right? And so it'd be worse in real life, right? And so I'm like, God, what must she be like?
Yeah.
So funny enough, so I just saw Jenny Pusey's just responded to my. So obviously it just seems funny that we're kind of like talking. We mentioned her, and she goes, "I saw a
Yeah.
TikTok earlier of the top 10 Twitter dramas of 2022, and my first thought was I would love a medic Twitter version of this. Not very relevant to this tweet, but throwing the idea out there. I'm like, mate, we're literally just talking about you in anyway. Yeah. So
This
hopefully
is
she's listening
creepy.
and knows we're a fan. Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe she's tapped into this room somehow.
I know. She's always listening.
Jenny,
She's
is
got a
that
finger on the
you?
pulse. Yeah, Jenny.
Yeah, man, she's
Big
way ahead
fans.
of us all.
Yeah, exactly.
Way.
Okay, so now June. So this
Mm.
was, I thought, an interesting one because it's something that I think about quite a lot. So this is a tweet from Roshana, and she goes, "Do not police juniors," in inverted commas, tweets by weaponizing their training position just because you don't like what they say. We're watching yours, woman who has sent all the examples up and down the country. Wow. Don't want to mess with Roshana.
No, she is. She is got no. I was going to say she's made a bed for herself. I don't mean it like that. She's become like this oracle in the way that she's this person now that's getting sent all these tweets and stuff. And that I think that's quite a really powerful position to be in. There must be a lot. Like I can only imagine. But yeah, very. I don't know. Every time I see her like crop up, I feel like she feels or looks and appears more empowered each time. She's doing good work, man.
Good
Thank
work.
God we have people like that. Very
Yeah,
good work.
totally. So like, I do feel like it's a thing though, isn't it? And whilst
Oh my God, yeah.
she obviously has in some ways like gotten to, seems to me anyway, like almost transcended that because she is quite like her reach seems to extend far and wide. But I think there's a lot you can assume from like a Twitter following, and you don't really necessarily know of that for certain.
Yeah.
And like maybe viewing her as untouchable is, I don't know, is that. Anyway, I like wonder though when I like tweet stuff, like whether like how much of it, because it's so easy to get branded as like a troublemaker or difficult or a bit annoying
Yeah.
or whatever, and those kind of little words seem to carry a kind of weight and with them. Do you
Yeah.
ever think about this? You've got a sizable following. Do you ever think
Yeah, so I've come a cropper a couple of times. So since I started back in training in February of this year, I've done two rotations and I'm two for two in rotations, essentially, of being pulled into one of those meetings without coffee, shall we say, about something that I've said publicly. And when it's been pulled, I've not said anything wrong. I've not done anything wrong, but someone has seen it and it hasn't landed well with them because essentially it's, I guess, what I won't go into specifics, but it's not been lies or anything, but it's always been like, oh, we can't do anything, but we've brought you in today to discuss about something that you've tweeted. And again, the professionalism thing is thrown around, and it's just made me realize that people are always watching. I think even if you don't recognize kind of people, or people that I've been pulled up by are not even on Twitter. So I've got this complex now where I'm like, trust no one. People are always watching because people love to screenshot, post amongst their
Yeah.
groups. And it's these things that you say that often lands with people because they can relate to them. That's what kind of gets people triggered, I think. And it's often kind of senior people, whether they're senior medics or consultants or execs, managers or whoever. I don't know, people, things just always find a way to get back to them. And I think you have to be very savvy, don't you? And I think know that ultimately you're not doing anything wrong, but also it doesn't feel great when you're pulled into these kind of
Yeah.
meetings, like Roshana says, when they're trying to weaponize these things because you personally don't like what's been said. Not that it's a lie or anything, you've
Yeah.
just taken offense by it. And you, as in whoever's pulling you in for that meeting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's something that when the first time that happened to me, I thought, oh, I'm giving up Twitter. Like, I can't go through this again. I thought I was going to bloody lose my job and stuff, which turned out to be nothing. But I'm like, actually, no, because I think I'm probably more careful now. And it's never been anything to do with patients or confidentiality or anything like that. Far from it. But yeah, I don't know. I just think, yeah, nowhere safe. I know that sounds very like pessimistic, but I think yeah, be aware that people are always watching, I think.
Yeah. I find it, you're right. It's difficult, isn't it? Because sometimes when I think about it, I get angry because I'm like, I just want to I think when like COVID happened and stuff, it made me realize like how isolated we are. But
Oh,
also,
yeah.
and I think Twitter gave me like an opportunity to still be authentic, or at least myself. Like a lot of the
Same. Yeah.
stuff, I just kind of like vomit onto Twitter. There'd be stuff and like
Yeah.
sometimes I look at my tweets and I'd be like, wow, because it almost was like a stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I sometimes feel like if you don't like that, then I don't really want to work with you either.
Yeah,
I
totally. Yeah.
have to curtail how I feel about stuff because and what you don't like it because I don't know because it seems
Yeah,
provocative.
like you don't have, no one's forcing you to read it.
Like
Leave me
just
alone.
me or block me or whatever. And so sometimes I feel like that. And because I'm like, because I get it, some people will find me annoying, fair enough. And to be honest, like I would rather not be around them, not work with them if that's how I'll
Yeah,
be. So in
totally.
some ways,
Yeah.
but then at the other side, I recognize how this medicine is so cliquey, isn't it? And sometimes,
Oh God.
and it just takes one kind of slightly influential person to be like, oh, that person is this for this. And then suddenly, like, a whole band of people will be like, actually, yeah, we don't want to.
Nylon. I know that's been a recent flavor of this week, hasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah.
No, but you're right. That's very much medicine. That's very medical-like. And it just reminded me of something which I totally forgot about. But I had
Yeah.
a meeting recently with a senior about something completely different, and he just brought up in the conversation, "You really like Twitter, don't you? Or you really like social media?" And I was
Right.
like, I'm not sure where this is going. And I
Yeah,
instantly
yeah,
felt, yeah, I felt embarrassed and I
yeah.
don't know why. And he's, oh yeah, I've noticed that you like, and I didn't know this person knew I was on there and I didn't know this person was on Twitter either. He's, oh yeah, I've
Right.
noticed like you tweet a lot about different things and you're often like talking to others about your training and comparing yourself and stuff. And I was like, no, not really. I said, I find it a really supportive community. I've learned a lot from there. And yeah,
Hmm.
I do enjoy it. And what? And he
Yeah.
came back with something that was really strange. And he was like, oh, my kids have grown up now and they've taken themselves off social media. And I was like, I don't know where this is
Uh,
going. Are you having
oh,
a
you'll
go at
grow
me?
up.
Like,
Yeah, yeah. Like,
yeah,
is this okay?
very childish. I was like, okay,
Okay.
but it's what I like.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, I just think
What was
it's
he doing
strange.
on there?
Yeah, I don't know. I think people are on there for various reasons. I think a lot of more senior people to me who I've spoken to say they're on there for educational purposes and to
Yeah,
network and stuff.
yeah.
But I don't know, I've made a lot of friends, but this very educational and I don't know, I love it. I think I've learned a lot, but I
Yeah.
don't like the subtle judgments about kind of people who tweet things and again like weaponizing stuff and people judging you and things like that. It's all a bit like leave us to it.
Yeah,
Like you're
exactly.
not hurting anyone.
And does it have to even be educational?
No,
When people,
not at all.
I think the oldies who put was that line. I feel like him talking about his kids growing out of it. There's like an implication that you're going to grow out of it or something, and it's
Yeah, and I don't know, and I think it wasn't meant with any malice or
yeah,
anything
yeah,
at
yeah,
all. I take it like that initially, but it did make me feel like I couldn't help it, but I did feel quite embarrassed. And I think it
yeah,
was
yeah,
just
yeah,
a way that the conversation was just happening, and that's just was what a reply that he said, and
yeah,
probably thinking about his own situation. But it just made me feel a bit like, oh, do you think I'm not grown up because I
yeah,
still, yeah, all very
yeah,
strange. I think it's such a difficult path to tread when these are like your supervisors and stuff, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
It's a bit
I
odd, yeah.
I had a consultant who don't really interact that much with, but she was like, "Oh, I've seen like on Twitter and stuff," and I was like, I always feel a bit like awkward, embarrassed, and I was like, "Oh God, okay."
Yeah.
I said, "Oh no,
Mm.
you're very funny. I was surprised by how funny you were." And I was like, thanks,
Oh,
cool.
thanks.
Anyway, so let's see this next patient. I didn't know what else to say, really.
Yeah, that line fills me with dread. Oh, wait, you're from Twitter, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
no, that's someone
That's not
else. That
me, yeah,
is
that's
not.
someone else. It's
Yeah,
surprisingly more difficult for me to do, be like, oh, yeah, no, there is like another Theresa Wardner out there. There's a
yeah,
cardiology
yeah. He just
registrar in
lives.
Norwich.
Yeah, he lives in the other deanery.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Oh, God,
it's
yeah,
John. It's not
yeah.
me. So.
So now it wouldn't be a year wrap unless I somehow managed to make it about me. And so here's a tweet from July. Here I am. So I was talking about the doctor's mess, and this was me shamefully harvesting a post from Junior Doctors Reddit, and that got me a bit of grief. But anyway, my tweet says, sad to see on Med Reddit a post about losing the doctor's mess. I don't use my local one, but wondered what people thought. I don't know why I added in that I don't use my local one, as if like, anyway, I wrote that. It's true, I don't. I use the Reg office. Anyway, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
phone me out. So the post was, we lost our doctor's mess. Today we were told after much deliberation, management is going to make the doctor's mess open to medically allied professionals and basically turn it into a clinical rest area. We were told that they have no obligation to provide us with the exclusive space. Charter says a mess or common room doesn't necessarily have to be exclusively to doctors. For doctors, involved the BMA, supportive seniors, multiple talks at meetings, but ultimately, no matter all our concerns, it's been ruled with an iron fist. And so then I wrote, funny, I feel like I should say I feel bad for them. There should be places where they can go for a break. Frequently in shared spaces, people find it appropriate to interrupt breaks with quick or routine queries that could otherwise just wait. Oh, Theresa. And then I've written, oh my word, it's not about elitism. It's about respect. Oh, I cringe. I say stuff. Anyway, I said stuff.
Why? That's
I don't
fine.
know. Anyway,
Yeah, you said stuff. You also
I
good
said some stuff. And then, but it got, people are still talking about the whole, I think one of the things that was levied against the message was that it was elitist. I feel like that was like a thing. Has your stance on it, what is your stance on it? What do you think?
About the whole like this elitist stuff, or
Yeah, do you think it's elitist to have a...
no, I don't think so. Like other professions in the hospital have break rooms, and we've never said that's elitist because God, all of us have got examples of when we rotate through a ward for 4 months. And again, I've seen there's been examples recently, hasn't it? Again, I think Emma Runswick posted something from again Reddit recently about a doctor who was very much made to feel not welcome by some of the nursing staff on the ward over Christmas. But we've all got stories of rotating through wards and then break rooms being told that, oh, this is for ward staff only, or when you go to theatres and again lockers like, oh, this is only for permanent staff, that's not you, and whereas you're like the on-call surgery reg or something and you're very much part of the team. So I don't think it's elitist in the slightest to be able to want somewhere for ourselves to store our belongings, to sit down, to have a bloody drink or whatever. But the whole elitist thing, that just plays into the mainstream media's narrative, doesn't it? This is what they are rubbing their hands with glee when they're turning all other professions against us. And people do have this notion of doctors, and yeah, a lot of us are knobheads, obviously present company excluded, but there are a lot of people like that kind of in medicine. But I don't know, the whole elitist thing is just, it's just weird. Like, it's a break room. Why can't we have somewhere to have a break?
Yeah, there's kind of before and whatever. I don't know.
I just don't understand how kind of these things are getting eroded, and there's lots of talk and people are losing like their doctor's offices on the wards and stuff, and none of this stuff is like ever replaced. And I just think this stuff is like eroding and eroding, so we've got nowhere to have a break, we've got nowhere to do our work. I don't know, it pisses me off a bit.
No, fair enough. And the thing is that kind of the expectation is like there's all this kind of all these moves towards efficiency, but then I think the amount of kind of credence or importance that's put towards the things that improve your well-being and therefore do feed into efficiency are just not really respected. For example, I remember seeing Abby Carey mention that if you don't have anywhere to literally sit or to do these discharge letters or whatever it is that they say
Yeah,
is
yeah,
imperative needs to be done within a period of time, well, of course it's going to take longer to do, especially if you have to leave the wards
yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever to like do it, or you're on like a
totally.
shared computer. And it's not really that complicated, but for some reason
It's been
it's
made so,
so,
hasn't
yeah,
it?
exactly. I don't know. Okay, so there's another tweet from July, although I feel like we've covered it, which is, as I say, a recurrent theme. So the emotional blackmail to
Yeah.
do locums. But if I read the email, or do you want to read the email? Can you do it in a kind of?
Yeah, I'd forgotten about this, but now it's definitely rejogged my memory. So this is a tweet by Gastronaut89. I hope they're a gastroenterologist. That's a cool name. And they've tweeted the saga continues, unbelievable. And then this was a screenshot of an email that they said was received by a friend at a different hospital. And the email reads, "Hi, is there no way you can cover your night tonight, please? I have no one available and no agency has come back to me. I would really appreciate it if you could fight through the pain and come in for me, please. One last favour since I give you those lovely locums. No locum shift is
Please.
lovely. That is BS.
Yeah,
Please, smiley face emoji. Thank you."
thank you.
Ew,
Fight
it's
through the
gross.
pain.
It's
Fight through the
gross.
pain.
How
Yeah.
dare you? Yeah. If you could fight through the pain and come in for me,
Yeah.
don't know what you would
How
think.
can you imagine like typing that out and then clicking and thinking that was a
No
like
self-respect.
yeah, I don't know, just the act of
Yeah, I
writing
think
out and
that's
then seeing
appropriate.
it in
Yeah,
front of you and being like, yeah, that's cool. Like I want to click send on that shit.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
So they're
wow.
definitely going to do the night shift if I send them this. Yeah, this is good.
Yeah.
This is a good.
Yeah, that was like the kind of problem solving like yes,
Yeah,
solution.
yeah.
Yes,
I'm going to beg
wow.
them and I'm
Yeah.
going to ask them to come in when they're sick. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's going to
nice.
work.
Amazing, really. So yeah, work through the pain.
Oh, he is a gastroenterology trainee. That's cool. Sorry, I just saw that. I was like, okay, that fits. I just love the name Gastronaut, and I was like, yeah,
Oh, fair
he's
enough.
gastro.
You're like, oh, it
Um,
makes sense now. Fair
yeah.
enough.
I was like, it's all coming together.
So emotional
Yeah,
blackmail. This is not cool, is it? I hope
no.
now to make it more topical though. Say if that person had copied the email, but included the sender's name in there. Oh my gosh, that was from this.
Oh, look
That was.
at
I know,
you.
tying it in. So. So this person hasn't said the trust it's from. They've even said
Mm.
received by a friend in a different hospital. Oh god, they put the initials there though. But anyway, forget that. So a person, so that generated a lot of heat. So there was a kind of email recently. I can't even remember what the content was. It was mean though, wasn't it? Oh no, it's about junior doctors being seen to be watching the World Cup final whilst at
Enjoying the
work.
World Cup whilst
Yeah,
working.
and they were
Yeah.
like, this wasn't signed off for. What the hell were you doing? You're supposed to be working, blah. And so they copied this kind of email with the sender's name on
The
it,
full name, wasn't it?
right? And I can't say that I was like, oh my god, I completely object to this because but I do in the sense that I think it's probably is a bit mean to put a person's name out there. I feel like
Oh
because
God, yeah.
yeah, because like you can see the amount of
Mm.
attention it gets, and so I don't want to reply to it because all that does is to draw more attention to it and whatever. And so I asked the question, but not thinking I didn't like the person who did it was like really junior. Like I think they're an F1 or something.
Very junior.
So
I think that's
very
part
junior,
of
right?
the issue.
Yeah, so I'm like,
Yeah.
but like whatever. And I just was interested to know. I feel like most people were like, if you put down the institution, that's okay but then I'm like, but at the other side of it, like sometimes you put down the institution and nothing like happens. Or do you feel like, and like how often do you get like a kind of flaming online on Twitter or whatever, and then there's like a cultural change as a result of it? Do you know what I mean? There's outrage and
I say
energy.
precisely 0% of the time. And we see situations where there was that thing that you guys mentioned recently on one of your episodes about the one trust suddenly retracted all the bank holidays over Christmas and said, oh, you don't
Oh
have your
yeah,
bank holidays anymore. And that brought about a change locally because
yeah,
things got called out. But of course, the BMA and stuff got involved as well. It wasn't because of one single tweet that happened. It didn't affect a big change. And so, yeah, things like that do get sometimes, what's the word, allowed and improved upon, but very specific situations. But I completely agree with you. I think there's no reason to put down people's full names in emails because they're not giving you permission to post
yeah,
screenshots of that. An
right,
email is private communication at the end of the day.
yeah.
even regardless of what the email said, and I'm not going to go into that, but I think the whole point was that, yeah, that person had no shame and was like, yeah, I'm going to
Yeah.
post this email and I'm going to leave that person's full name on it. Just seems very off. And it's even difficult when you say about the trust as well. And I saw some responses saying that, yeah, fine, you shouldn't call out individual people, but yeah, call out the trust and name and shame. And I find that difficult sometimes as well. I think in the profession that we're in and this whole professionalism thing again,
Yeah.
it's not that black and white to be able to speak freely, because yeah, we should be able to, but we know there's often repercussions, and
Yeah.
rightly or wrongly, that you bring a lot of kind of stress onto yourself with that. But I don't know, I just think it's a bit, it didn't sit right with me. It was very much bad vibes when people post stuff like that with people's full names and stuff on, where they've had no, we've seen it in the past with emails from people as well, and people have found a way and they said, well, I didn't give you permission to
Yeah.
post that in a very public kind of arena.
Yeah, I think
It's a
that was
bit
like a nice. That's definitely like nice spin of it, because you can come at it from two angles. Like, one, okay, fine, if you don't empathize with the person that you're outing or doxing online or whatever, fine, okay, because you
yeah,
think that they've done something that's so heinous. But how about from the
yeah,
other perspective, whereby they then use that against you and they say, you put it online and now I've been bullied and there's been a pylon and all that kind of stuff. And therefore you lose your kind of moral high ground, because then they've
totally.
weaponized that
Yeah,
against you. And so then you've actually
yeah,
just undermined your own position. So
yeah,
in some ways, just like putting the stuff out there, but anonymizing that kind of protects you in that
yeah,
way as well. So I thought that was
yeah,
like a nice spin on it. Okay, fine. So strategically, if you want some positive to come out of it and not to undermine your position,
yeah,
then that's the way you need to play it. And I think that would definitely
yeah.
be my advice to kind of
Yeah, I just
people.
think that kind of posting a screenshot with people's names in it shouldn't be the first point of call in
Yeah,
trying to reconcile something like that. Like, obviously, we weren't aware of all the details, but it sounded like people were being very noisy or whatever. I didn't witness it, I don't know, and I don't care. But it was very much, did you not, that was that not discussed locally? Like, why was your first kind of instinct, I'm going to put all this over Twitter,
yeah,
and then when it doesn't go their way, then yeah, it turns into a bit of a pylon on them. And
yeah,
I just think, and forgive me for saying, actually, I don't care, but this is just a personal
yeah, yeah,
opinion of mine. But I just feel there is a lot of very junior, and it does feel immature kind of doctors around at the moment who are posting and claim to be whistleblowing, and the only people that are trying to make a difference and stuff, seemingly being very naive and no awareness of how the bigger picture really should be and how kind of things work in the real world.
yeah,
You can't just go storming onto Twitter posting private screenshots to get things done.
yeah,
Yeah, sometimes it does get stuff done, but it just seems like a very childish and naive way to go about things. Different if things have been tried to like manage locally and you're not getting anywhere.
yeah.
But I don't know. It's just that's the one thing I've disliked about Twitter lately, I think.
Yeah, fair enough. I've got to say, I like the energy. I like the angry energy. I think, and I think you're right though. Like, it's about channeling it in a way that brings about something positive in the end. Because if
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
right,
yeah.
if you want to be like tit for tat, like whatever, then you can go and you can set fire to. But if this is about making it better, making the situation better for everyone, and about, I think if you care about the people that you work with and making it better for yourself, like this. Say
Yeah.
if this is the first week into your attachment and that's a member of staff that you're working with, you've burnt all your bridges doing that, and so you do have to be careful.
You cannot forget that you're going to stay in these places and you're in the same deanery and people talk and stuff. Like, we've all experienced that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
And we mustn't forget as well that we are all on social media, and there is an element for anyone, and I refuse to believe anyone who denies this, about engagement and validation. And we can't forget that these kind of tweets bring a lot of likes and validation and views and
yeah,
retweets. And I do sometimes wonder if that's sometimes the ulterior motive, and that's absolutely fine if that's what you want to do. No judgment from me at all, but it's like the content doing that is just, it
yeah,
feels a bit weird vibes, I think.
yeah. I do want to. I think apparently there are like medical students and stuff who listen, and I just think that obviously we want. I think as seniors, like we want to protect our junior doctors and stuff, and so we're not saying that you shouldn't come forward and expose bad behavior. That's not it. But I think
Not at
what
all.
certainly like our message is that there are like pathways that you should try, and if not, there are lots of people online who are willing to give advice, and then there's stuff that you can do anonymously that's safer for you as well. So I think just bear
Yeah,
that in mind,
that's
because
it.
we're
It's for
not.
looking after yourself, isn't it? Just be careful, look after yourself, and just don't, yeah, just I think it's being careful that you're not leaving yourself open for people to retaliate and bring things against you in the future. I think that's
Yeah.
what my main worry is,
Yeah,
essentially.
totally. So, moving on to August. So this seemed like something that happened a very,
Oh,
very long time
I
ago.
forgot about this as
Yeah,
well.
the tea bag. The tea bag. So
My
this is where
God, yeah.
Worcester Hospital. Was it Worcester? Or was it Worcester? Worcestershire?
Was
Worcestershire.
I
It is
think that's
Worcester.
how English people say Worcester, I think. Yeah.
Worcester is
Yeah,
Worcester. Shouldn't
Worcestershire.
Worcester be spelled Wester though? Really?
Have you seen that video? It went viral about an old Italian grandpa trying to say Worcestershire sauce.
Yeah, like what's
It
the
goes on for ages. Like,
yeah, I do. Oh,
Worcestershire,
just it's just yeah.
Worcestershire
Yeah,
sauce.
that's adorable. That was adorable.
Oh,
This tweet that I copied though is where so there's a little thing that says a little treat to say thank you, and inside it is a tea bag. But the tweet that I put is where like Metal's done it, where someone's taking out a tea bag and it says GMC referral, and it just cracked me up.
oh my God. You can laugh but also cry at the
Cry,
same time, couldn't you?
yeah.
I totally forgot about
Tea
teabagging.
bags, yeah.
Hey,
Oh
wait,
god.
did we get the George Cross this year as well? Was
Oh
that
yeah,
this
we
year?
did. Yeah, that's this. That was this
1 million
Yeah.
George
Oh
Cross.
god.
Oh, we were so lucky and privileged this year.
Yeah.
We've had so much.
What a year. Anyway, let's move on to this is Layla. No, Layla is someone I follow, and I think she's just effortlessly cool. Like
She's so
effortlessly.
cool,
I
man.
wonder what she's like in
So
real life.
cool.
I imagine she's
Oh,
like
really cool.
she is, isn't she? Just like there are a few things like I wonder what her voice sounds like. And I imagine it's like quite syrupy and jazzy. But also I imagine her to be about 8 foot tall for some reason.
Yeah, like this goddess. Yeah.
Yeah, like of Wonder
Yeah.
Woman-esque.
Yeah.
Anyways, so she said I had a reg introduce himself to me as I'm name ST8, and I just thought it was the oddest thing. I replied, I'm Layla, 36 years old. He didn't find it that funny. She said that funny, so obviously he did find it slightly funny, and it is funny.
It's really awkward titter.
How do you introduce yourself? How do you introduce yourself?
So I am again being a bit of a dick in the last couple of years. I always used to. I don't know what it is, but I find myself introducing myself more now as I'm Dr. John. I'm one of the doctors working here today,
Yeah. Why
and
is
I
that
don't know
like your
why
tip?
I've done that. No, I don't think it is, but in terms of I've always things have changed, and I don't know why, and I'm just a bit like maybe I'm just a bit more respectful of like my own career now, and I was always kind of not again I'm worried that this is going to come and people will say, oh, what's wrong with being a nurse or whatever, but being a female you always get
Yeah.
confused as being anything but a doctor,
Yeah.
and that's fine, but it just
Yeah.
gets to me at points where you're like, actually I'm not what I know physio whatever. So I got to that point where I think I use myself as I'm Dr. John, I'm one of the doctors, or one of the junior doctors on the ward or in clinic or anything essentially, and if I'm with a
So,
consultant or whatever I'll say this is my boss or my supervisor and stuff.
so you'll say, hi, I'm Dr. John. I'm one of the junior doctors on the ward.
Probably more, I'll say more I'm one of the doctors on the ward, I think,
Okay.
rather than junior doctors. I don't know, it's strange, isn't it?
It's so natural.
I don't know, I'm like, I've never thought, but I've never said I'm one of the GPST ones.
Fine.
I've never said, oh, I'm the neurosurgery ST4 or whatever. I would
Yeah.
always say, oh, I'm the neurosurgery reg on call. Or I don't know, yeah. I
What
think
did
it's
you
weird
do
when
before?
people don't know. Have you ever heard did you know I did neurosurgery training before?
Shut up.
Did you know that?
Shut up.
Did you know that?
Shut up. No, but you said that you've changed. So what did you? Because
No, so I know I jest, but no, I think before
dare
I was
you?
like, oh, my name's Beth. I'm working on the ward today or something like that. I don't know,
really?
but
Okay.
I've never until recently I've never introduced myself as doctor whatever, and I don't know why. And I think previously I probably felt like a bit of a fraud. I think, and I never did that. But I don't know. Again, I'm just like, oh no, I've worked for this shit.
Fair
I'm just
enough.
gonna say,
I do think that.
yeah, it's
Do you
funny.
think people think you're a dick for doing? I don't. I think that's.
No,
that's
I think that's very much come from me. That's my like internalized,
Yeah.
like self-critical. But it made me laugh. And I'll never forget a previous hostel I worked in, and I met one of the sisters, and she said, "Oh, my name's," and then told me her exact banding and every role that she had. She was like something like, "Oh, I'm one of the band sevens in theatre," and then went and link for palliative care lead nurse. But it was just kept going on and on. I was like,
my
"Oh,
gosh.
okay."
Cool. Nice one.
Yeah, and it just made me laugh. Like I had the CV, and it was just like a normal meeting, like we were doing a case together or whatever. And yeah, not in a bad way, but I was like, oh, that's quite unusual that you know your exact banding and everything. I'm a band
Yeah.
7B. I was like, oh, okay, that's good for you.
Do you think nice? Do you feel like she must have felt intimidated, and so therefore
Yeah, or just maybe not even intimidated, but maybe wanting people to know that she was maybe more senior, which
yeah,
I totally respect, but I've never experienced that before. But it's always been like, oh, I'm one of the sisters, or I'm
yeah, yeah, yeah,
coordinating today, or whatever, rather than like the exact banding they are and stuff. I thought maybe it was a way to get,
yeah.
which I
Fair
totally
enough.
respect.
Yeah, totally.
It's
It's funny, isn't
unusual.
it? Because we can frame it like either
Mm.
way. Couldn't frame it like, oh, it's like an assertion of dominance,
Yeah.
and so I never. Yeah, I say now like I'm Theresa, I'm one of the cardiologists. I say I'm a cardiologist, and that was after like one of my consultants said to me like, "You're a cardiologist now. Like you're at the end, you're going to be a consultant." And now I think now that I say I'm a cardiologist, I don't say I'm Dr. Gunawardena anymore. I say I'm Theresa, I'm one of the
Yeah.
cardiologists. But I definitely would have said I'm Dr. Gunawardena definitely when I started because I did have it. I remember once going up to see a patient and I introduced myself as a doctor and she was like, "Oh, I thought you were one of the cleaners." And I remember being like, "Oh, okay, cool. Okay, that's how it is."
Oh,
Right.
no.
And that was
I
definitely
had
like
to
bring me up down a peg, I
go,
feel.
no, go, go.
No, I feel like
Yes.
that was it. It was designed to be undermining.
No, it's really strange, and I think like people say it in a way that's a bit sometimes subtly passive aggressive.
Yeah.
Like they may not be explicit about it. And I've been on kind of the medical take this week, and yesterday I was seeing a patient in the ambulatory whatever, and this woman kept saying to me, "So you're the doctor seeing me today?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's correct. My name's Dr. John. I'm on call today." And she was like, "But you don't look like a doctor." And you don't sound like a doctor, and you don't have the personality of a doctor.
So did you be
And I
like,
was like,
thanks, I think?
yeah. And I was like, and I just kind of looked at her, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Like, what were
and I
you
was,
expecting? Yeah.
yeah, it had like such a shit shift, and I was like, I don't know what you mean by that. And she was
Yeah.
like, I don't think it's a bad thing. And I was like, oh, okay, thanks for clarifying that.
Oh,
And then she
yeah,
went,
cheers.
I'm gonna call you Bethan because that's your name. And I was like, okay,
Good.
like that's
Good.
fine. Like,
That-
correct, you can read my badge. That's
yeah,
absolutely fine. It's not what I introduced myself as, but I just want
yeah.
this consultation to be over. And so through stuff. And then she just went, and you're definitely the doctor that's
Oh, for
here
God's
today. And I
sake.
was like, yeah. And she said, you just don't act like one. And I was like,
What does
wow,
that mean?
okay.
What were we supposed to
Like,
do?
again, exactly. And I was like, do you want me to just be an arse? Do you want me
Yeah.
to start throwing my dick around? Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know what
What
you
am I doing
want. And it's
wrong?
just,
Yeah.
yeah, and even though people might say, "Oh, that's not a bad thing," mistaking you for the cleaner or whatever. Again, being a cleaner is not bad, but it's that subtly veiled weird thing, isn't it? It's
I wonder because ultimately you were like assessing her and you're going to be the person who institutes her treatment and stuff. And so like wonder like if in their head, what is this gambit going to achieve for them? What is it by saying
yeah,
this? What's she thinking in her head is going to happen? Like best
yeah,
case
yeah,
scenario is that what? Say if the cards on the table is because she doesn't like you for whatever reason she don't want to see you. So what she wants you
yeah,
to go and find someone else to see her, in which case she has to wait for longer. And the most likely scenario is you'll continue to see her and you're not going to treat her
yeah,
better as a result, are you? Like, you're not going to be like, oh, I really like this person who's just undermined me
yeah,
consistently.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what is it that she's trying to achieve? I just don't
I
seem to be
genuinely
clear.
would love to, yeah, I would love to
Insight into it.
understand people's, yeah, but it's very strange because are you trying to be nice by
Yeah.
trying to be more informal and my friend because that's okay, but it's not really appropriate for now? Or are you, like you say, just being a bit like up in your grill, not happy, and maybe want a man or somebody who you think looks older? Because then the consultation continued and this kept going on. I was trying so hard to ascertain why she was there and what I could do to help her. And then she was like, where do you live?
Right.
And I was like,
What's that?
Liverpool, the
Okay.
Northwest. I'm not being
Yeah.
more specific than that. And it was just, I'm quite an open person, but it was just all very strange. And then she was like, were you married? You're not wearing a wedding ring and all
Oh
this
my
kind of stuff. And
God.
I don't understand, like,
What's going on?
what yeah. And I was just like, oh no. I was going to lie and say, oh, I'm a nun, so I can't actually lie. And I just thought, I didn't know how to cut the conversation short, but
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm going to send you for an ECG, just get out of my room. That was the best I could come up with. But people are weird. Yeah.
That's so intrusive and like,
Yeah. I sometimes find those interactions harder to deal with than people who are like overtly very mean and quite
yeah.
rude to you. Like
At
with
least you
that,
know
I
what you're
can,
dealing with, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. But when it's, yeah, anyhow, sorry, I went on a bit about that.
No, I can see why
Very
you feel that way because you're like, because you're made to feel like perhaps you're being sensitive by feeling that. But everything that you're saying is a bit like, what is it? What is it?
Yeah,
Wrong?
yeah,
Like, what's the issue?
yeah. Because if you want to chat, we can chat about anything. Don't need to know about like my love life,
Yeah,
where what my address is, or anything to do with that. But
weird.
yeah,
People are so wild.
strange behaviour.
Yeah, absolutely. We're now in September, October time, and there was a tweet from Nina which seems apt, but she says, anyone else feel like they're witnessing the final chapter of the NHS, question mark. Patients dying, waiting for ambulances, hospital waiting lists at record high, some waiting years, 1 in 4 patients predicted to be without a GP within 10 years. The Tories have succeeded in collapsing the NHS. She said this in September, and stuff's actually even worse now. And we were talking about it before, weren't we?
Yeah.
Just when you think it can't get worse, like it literally does, or at least that's how it feels.
It just carries on. Somehow it does.
It limps along.
Yeah, it's a mad skill of the NHS at the moment. You can't see how it would dive further, but it somehow does.
Yeah, God. Anyway, okay, because we're like coming up to time, we've still got November and December to do. November was the FY1s who were asked to fold scrubs. So do you see this? This is a tweet from TDM. So why are FYs considering strike, leaving? Maybe it's because we are treated like utter crap and paid like it too. We're learning that we are humans too and deserve a crumb of respect for the amount of self-sacrifice this profession demands. And he copied in a WhatsApp message which said, apparently it's the job of the night FY to fold the scrubs that get delivered to the ward and put them into neat piles for the consultants. Amazing. Amazing. This reminds me, have you read, I think it's like, is it called Boy or something by Roald Dahl? And I think when he was at boarding school, like the juniors, the little boys had to go warm the toilet seats up for the...
This was like from 18, like this tweet was from like 1897 or something.
Yeah, I know. That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah,
So
press the consultant's underwear, fold the scrubs neatly.
I know.
I love the person's reply, which was just,
Yeah. If I got asked to do this, I'd do such a terrible job that I wouldn't get asked to do it again, I guess.
I'd probably take a steaming dump in the pile. And just like, there you go.
Yeah, fair enough. Nice.
Never again will she have to fold the scrub.
Yeah, nice energy. Okay, so we're now at December. I'm interested in your response to this. This is the tweet from Ronan, and it's...
I loved. This was I wanted to call it MRSA. It's the MSRA exam preparation materials, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is the exam that was initially made for GP training, I believe, and has now been taken into lots of specialty recruitment. Even anaesthetics and neurosurgery, I think, have started using this for national recruitment, and I think it's very questionable. And it's an examination that has a situational judgment component and then like a clinical component. And I think, was it last week or the week before that you guys mentioned this on your podcast about this question, isn't it, about you're the F2 and you're on your annual leave and you get a phone call from the ward because the person who you'd swapped with hasn't turned up, and what do you do?
Yeah.
And the least correct answer was that you should explain that this is not your fault, that you're unable to help them go along on your... Like, how is that the least correct answer? How is the most appropriate answer for you to do the running around, ringing your colleague when it says you're driving to the airport about to leave the country, but you're trying to find someone who's got this other person's phone number?
It's amazing, isn't it?
And when I did the MSRA for GP training, I'd never done it before. I hadn't really revised for it because I didn't know how to revise for like situational judgment. But I weirdly did like very well. So I think I ranked as like 14 out of 1,500 people doing like the GP training. And I don't know how. The clinical stuff was okay. It's all like very... I think having done medicine for a number of years, it's all like the very basic stuff that you see day to day. For me, I think the situational judgment stuff was where I assumed would trip people up. And I think I actively went into that exam, looked at all the options. It was in one of those Pearson View centres, on driving test centres, and ranking the options of what I thought I would do in real life, and then actively reversing those and submitting those.
Amazing.
And then somehow did amazingly. So it just shows that it's another game to play, isn't it? This bloody exam is just another game to play. But that got a lot of kind of interaction, didn't it, when that was posted a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah.
And again, it's just stinks of NHS.
Absolutely. It got a lot of strong words. I think like we were like, come on, I'd just hang up and answer the phone and stuff. But definitely like I have been in the situations where I remember once I think we'd gone glamping, that was it, and I got a call and I saw it was like from one of the consultants, and so I don't know what possessed me to answer my phone while someone that was like the first mistake. And like, obviously now I definitely have a massive aversion to when I see unknown numbers on my phone anyway, whether it's scammers or whatever,
Yeah,
because it might also be the
yeah,
hospital. And there's no good can ever come of answering that phone. So just don't do it, guys. If you like are on your annual leave, just don't answer the phone. Just be
yeah,
blissfully ignorant. Just let it go. Whatever it is, it can bloody wait. Like it's not worth it.
yeah.
Anyway, I answered the
If you,
phone. Yeah,
I say no, if you take one thing away from this podcast, it's that, isn't it?
that's right.
Don't answer the phone.
Don't check your
Go on, you
emails.
answered the phone.
I answered the
Yeah.
phone, and it was about a patient that I'd seen before on your leave, and it was just, you haven't done this and you haven't done that. And I was like, I'm really sorry. And they're like, can you sort it out? And I'm no, I'm actually, I'm gonna camp. I'm camping. I don't have internet.
Yeah,
Like I've got
your
4G on my
field.
phone. Yeah, I don't have a laptop.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway, so Lils
Yeah.
is, we're literally, I think we're walking to, Lil, there was like a trampoline place there. We're like literally walking to a trampoline place. I was with my daughter, and I remember putting down my phone, and then my daughter was like, what was that? What was that about? And I was like, I felt really stupid explaining it to her. Like, why am I answering this? But yeah,
Oh,
no
yeah.
happiness to come from that kind of thing.
I just don't know in any other profession where that stuff like happens. And it's like you are expected to be at people's beck and calls. And like say, as soon as switchboard have your number and stuff, it just becomes a bit of a free for all at times. And
Yeah,
I know you've talked about getting like phone calls when you're at home and you're not on call. And I've had that when I've been like non-resident on call and it's not you, but then they'll say, "Oh, but who is and what's the number and how do I get in touch with them?" And you're like, it's 3 a.m. in the morning. It's not me. That should be the end of the conversation. No further. But people have no shame. Like it
yeah, it's
just,
true.
it's expected.
I wonder if it does. It must happen in other industries in terms of people working from home and stuff. They say that the kind of isn't the line blurred because people are working from home more, so they
Yeah,
just
I guess so. But they're getting like, they must be getting, they're getting paid to like work from home, I guess. Whereas I feel like when we're on annual leave, I feel like people pretend to have like good boundaries. And when I think of other jobs that I've had, I've never been disturbed on
yeah,
annual leave as such. It's always, but like last week, for example, I think I had most of the week before Christmas, I had most of the days off. And I was getting calls from the bereavement office because
yeah.
the
Those
ward that I
ones.
had worked on previously, yeah, people had passed away after the weekend and I hadn't been working, but I'd been on the ward. And I said, "Oh, I'm not in until Thursday now." And they were like, "These death
Need to do that.
certificates need doing, so why can't you come in?" And I was like, "I'm on annual leave. I'm not near you guys." And they were just like, "What?
Okay.
Why?" I was just
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I've had that
I
happen.
said, "I'm really sorry, but I can't." Yeah, it's really hard, I think, isn't it?
Yeah,
People just expect that. And I think sometimes when you push back and like things like this, you just refuse or you don't answer the phone or whatever,
yeah.
that begins to feel wrong, but
Aggressive.
in
Yeah, yeah.
reality, that's the most right thing you could do. Yeah.
Absolutely. I have seen it like with the bereavement office as like an interesting example because their hours are like I don't know 9 to 5 or at least those are
Nine
the
to
time.
five, yeah.
Yeah, and often I've had it happen where I've been on nights and I'm post nights and then I'm getting hammered with
Mm,
like phone calls or whatever. That's why like for most of the forms I fill in, especially if it's to do with the bereavement office, I don't leave my mobile number. And usually
no.
it's emails that and they're always like CCing in the consultants, and I'm like, fair enough, but I'm not doing
Yeah.
that. It's like not
Yeah,
breaking.
if they're there, they can crack on and do the
Yeah, yeah,
forms. That's
exactly.
fine by me.
Yeah, but it's not.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you definitely should. The take home should be that the no good can come of answering your emails or responding to phone calls and stuff from work when
No.
you're on your leave. Respect
Yeah.
yourself and allow that.
Yeah.
Respect
Respect
yourself.
yourself.
Respect
Yeah.
yourself.
And I like what you were saying, and I think Xander's spoken about it before, and I think Abby Carey's mentioned it about people with dual SIM phones is
Oh
amazing.
yeah,
But
yeah,
if you're a sucker like I am with an iPhone, sometimes there is that argument, like you said, I think you had previously a different phone for work. I
yeah,
think if you can do that's such a good idea,
yeah.
especially if you're in a specialty that's going to be on call and stuff as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, I definitely did that. And they're so liberating to just turn your phone off, and then you don't even become aware that you're
Mhm.
missing the phone call, and so that ignorance is pure
Exactly.
bliss.
Yeah, it's even
Um,
better.
yeah.
Even better.
So I think we're coming up to time. I thought we'd end with the fest hole because
Yeah.
these two have. Do you want to read out the first one? Because I was interested in what your answer to it would be as well.
Okay, yeah. So this festival was from today, the 29th.
Yeah,
I was once put on the spot in a job interview with the question, "How would your best friend describe you?" Nerves took over and my natural defenses kicked in. What came out of my mouth was, he'd probably say I'm a bit of a bleep. See you next Tuesday.
yeah,
That's really good. I like that.
yeah. How would you
Uh,
say that people would describe you? Yeah,
I
perfect.
genuinely don't know. I think I'm either known as the Welsh angry one, or I sometimes think people would say, "Oh, from Gavin and Stacey."
No.
Like that, but without the dragon tattoo, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's really strange how you view yourself. I think is obviously very different and a lot more critical potentially than other people would describe you. I think it's a weird one, isn't it?
That's not really
What
an
would you
answer.
say? What?
Oh, what would people
No, I
say?
don't know.
What would
I'm
people say about
deflecting
me?
it back to you now.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
What would people say
Did you
about
do
me?
this? Was this your photo or was this what you
Yeah,
said?
yeah, call me a bit of a cunt.
Just give
I think
over.
that's probably fair. What would people say?
No, give over.
I think people would say that I talk a lot, so I'm probably like quite like. I remember when I used to play.
Yeah, I think I think that's a good one actually. That's quite a nice one.
Yeah,
With people, would you say like you're chatty? Was that? Would you
yeah.
say
So I'm
that
like
or
a radio. I think people said I'm like a radio in the background, just like
he just
constantly.
doesn't stop?
Yeah, just constantly going like a radio. So some people say that, and I think also like I'm probably known for being animated, and so that people always are like, "Is everything okay?" Like as soon as I'm like tired or whatever, the balance is off, and I go quiet, and then people are like
Yeah.
something is wrong.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I'm the person who is the one that is probably intense and has been like, "What's wrong? Something's up. Tell me what's up." So yeah, I think I'd be the reciprocated. So I'd be like, "Oh yeah, she's the intense one."
Ah, fair enough. I can't say that that's what I think of you, to be honest. But oh, that
What
sounds
would you
really.
say?
Anyway,
No, you're not intense. So you're so blasé. But no, it's like it's weird, isn't it? I don't know. I think that would be probably like quite an interesting little thing to like, ask people, isn't it? Because obviously, not to their face, they'd have to probably say pleasant things. But
yeah,
I think you never really know what people think of you, and that just fascinates me. I would love for people to know. And
yeah,
do you know what? Sometimes I think like we're all human, aren't we? And I don't want to say that we talk about people behind their backs. In people's little groups, you often talk about like mutual enemies or people on Twitter that might have got you riled up. And sometimes I feel bad about doing that and think, oh, I shouldn't be gossiping or whatever. But then conversely, I think, oh, do you know what? I'm the person who has pissed someone else off, no shadow
yeah,
of a
yeah,
doubt. So they're gonna be talking about me, maybe in a negative way in their little circle. So I'm like, oh, it's all balanced out.
yeah,
Too
yeah. It's
bothered
true.
about.
It's true. I think I saw there's this really good TikTok account. I think it's from Jeffrey Marsh, and they say like they found it very hard. They obviously are hated and misunderstood by certain people, and the sooner
Yeah.
that they were able to accept that people will experience them in their own way and they're entitled to experience that and they're entitled to hate them and to misunderstand them, as long as they do that in a way that's like safe and that they can. I think I'm not explaining it in a way that as well as they did, but basically they found peace by accepting that there are going to be people, as you say, that kind of that you're going to be the villain in their story, and as soon as
Yeah.
you accept that and make peace with it and whatever, and just accept that, well, whatever, it's liberating.
That's a really good word to use. I think there's real strength in accepting, or there's real courage in accepting that you're going to be disliked. Like it's impossible to please everyone.
Yeah,
And so you sometimes have to have that courage to understand that actually people are not going to like me. And like you say, I think that peace comes with that, doesn't it? Because you don't want to bend over backwards for people that you know would never see you in a positive light.
yeah. I like there were some emails circulating about cardiology. There were like a few kind of like complaining emails, and I was speaking to one of my supervisors about it. I think because some of the registrars like piped in, being like defensive, or that people are saying this and that and whatever. And then he just go and I said, everyone hates us in the hospital. And he goes, yeah, that's like a cardiology thing. Like it's everywhere. Like everyone hates cardiology, and the sooner that you accept that that's the case, like the healthier it is for you. And
Yeah, your
and
life will be better.
yeah, exactly. And I remember not long ago, so he's an academic cardiology trainee. He like posted something like cardiology is like the best specialty or whatever. And this dude's like
Oh, I saw that.
yeah,
Yeah,
he's like a first year
yeah, I saw
SHO.
that.
Like this guy's like a little baby basically, and he's just like, I
Yeah.
love cardiology. Like, literally just saying I love cardiology, and people rinsed him. They rinsed him so
They
hard,
so
and I
did.
was
It
like,
was
oh
so
mate.
tight. Yeah,
I was like,
it
oh
was so
god.
tight.
Mate, I was just watching and be like, oh poor dude. But he got rinsed, and I was like,
Yeah,
it's
there's
not.
a lot to learn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, mate, it's not about you. If people just don't like cardiologists, allow it. You need to accept that.
Yeah, you
Just
have to
deal with it.
accept that.
Yeah, we embrace the hate,
Yeah,
embrace
man.
it. So, do you do this?
Yeah.
So, this is the other festival. So, sometimes I race the toaster to do everyday tasks, like make a cup of tea or go for a wee, because when I win, it brings a tiny bit of joy to my sad,
Yeah.
pathetic, pointless existence. Do you do this?
Yeah, I do. I'm always having little races. So I was thinking of other ones. So I think sometimes it's like rushing up the stairs by the time something is finished. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know what. Or yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah.
feel for me as well, I don't know if it's like sometimes it's a compulsive thing to do it. I don't know why, but sometimes I have to get up those stairs before that finishes. Or oh god, I sound weird.
No,
Yeah, do
not
you
at
do
all.
that?
Yeah, yeah. My thing, I think I have a weird obsession with doing stuff, like having stuff going on at the same time. And I think so I definitely do it in the morning. I'll go and I'll start the engine to my car whilst the coffee machine's like cycling,
Yeah.
and then I'll be putting stuff in the boot of my car in the hope that by the time I've done all that, the coffee will be ready, and then I can put it into my coffee cup
Yeah,
and
and
take it and
then
go.
yeah.
And I'm obsessed. It's like a weird, and I know that I have it like this kind of weird, like completionist thing where I do like to do. And so I remember as an F1, I'd quite like it where we have two computers and you have two things going on at the same time, especially because some things will take a while to open, and so be like doing a
Yeah.
request on one and then discharge letter in the other. And I did find that there was something, even though obviously like it's not ideal to be doing lots of things at the same time. There
No,
was,
but it's like a satisfaction with it, isn't it? I think I know what you mean. Yeah,
yeah.
I think I know what you
It's a
mean.
bit sad that I used it to compare with life as an F1, as if that's something of cool.
This is our lives now.
Yeah, I
We've
know.
just, yeah,
Oh well.
something else we've got to embrace.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's 2022 wrapped. Oh my god, we've gone well over time. But
Yeah.
um,
Oh,
it's been lovely talking to
sucks to
you.
be the
I
listeners.
know, right? Thanks if you've gotten this far. Thank you so much for putting up
Yeah,
with this in
many thanks.
2022. I've got
Has
to.
been a heavy year though, hasn't it?
It has. It's been really heavy. Thank you so
Yeah.
much to you, and obviously to Nina if she bothers to
Oh,
listen.
no.
Like for so
If
much.
she decides to turn up
I know,
next
right?
time.
Oh my god. For
Oh
like,
my God, what if they're doing their own podcast, the Rush?
I know, right?
What if Imran and Nina are doing their own thing?
God, what do they even talk about though?
Imran will be talking about
Oh yeah.
how he's getting paid £1,000 an
Yeah,
hour to
exactly.
do the podcast.
Yeah.
And Nina will be saying, oh my God, can the NHS get any worse?
Yeah, bless her. God, Nina, change the record.
Yeah. She needs to just not work
Yeah,
one day. Like,
exactly.
she works a lot of hours. She needs to take a break.
Yeah, she's a singing career, isn't it? That's the other thing that she could do.
That's it. Oh, can I just say something? So I've got Twitter open here,
Right,
and trending, the four things that are trending at the moment on mine
right.
are ADHD, Med Twitter, Katie Hopkins, and Prince Andrew.
Oh wow. Well,
I don't
those,
know what those four things
what
mean.
do they all have in common? Oh God, dread to think.
This is very ominous. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, okay. I might not log on to Twitter later.
yeah. I hope we can do some
Oh,
more
yeah.
joint episodes in
We're
the new year.
around.
Yeah, cool. All
Oh,
right.
yeah. 2023, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So by the time people are listening, it'll be the new year. So happy New Year, everyone. Bye.
Happy New Year. Bye. Bye bye.